Hey there! We're the Basic Liches. We're two D&D dungeon masters trying to learn Pathfinder 2nd edition for the first time. Welcome to our impression series where we're going over every class in Pathfinder 2nd edition core rulebook. Come along with us. We're going to give a basic overview. We do a day in the life of this class, what it's like to play during a day of adventuring, and then we give some game master tips after all of that.
Today we're looking at the next class in alphabetical order, the Cleric. Like always, we are only covering core rulebook features, and we will not be doing a deep dive on the mechanics. This is sort of a class overview and what you'll experience at level 1 as a Cleric. Hopefully by the end of the video, you'll get a good taste if the Cleric is right for you, or maybe you need to move on to a different class. So join us and find out more about Pathfinder 2E's deity-loving Cleric. A big part of the Cleric's flavor is going to come from which deity you choose to worship and sort of follow. That's a big part of this class.
It's all the same deities, right?
Same deities that you can choose from the champion class. They can be good or they can be evil, but the core rulebook basically just covers if you're good. For me, two major Clerics that sort of stand out, I'm thinking of movies, I'm thinking of Hammer horror. I mentioned Dr. Frankenstein, played by Peter Cushing for The Alchemist. Here he is the Holy Von Helsing, the God-fearing man of reason, man of religion. He is the vampire hunter. He is amazing. I love when he sort of brandishes like two broken chairs and makes a cross as his holy symbol. Yeah. It's not really the spell-casting Cleric. For that, I tend to go more video games. That's where I think of the spell-casting healers and stuff. Final Fantasy IX, I think of Princess Garnet, where she is this white mage, is what they're called in Final Fantasy, casting all these holy spells, white magic, cure, things like that. How about you? What are you thinking? What's the flavors? What are you feeling?
I thought of a Cleric as in kind of like a belief system, and also maybe their calling. So I thought of Morpheus from The Matrix, because his calling is to find the one, and he believes solely in the prophecy by the Oracle, and believes in it fully that the one is going to come and save humanity from the race of machines. And then I thought of kind of a different one is Disney's Moana.
Okay.
And I thought Moana because she was like chosen young by the spirit of the ocean. And she's always felt this calling, again, with like a calling of just not knowing what the calling was, but that she needed to go find out what it was.
So the flavor, are you excited for the Cleric?
Yeah, I'm a little soup for this. I'm soup because I've heard that this feels more cleric-y than D&D 5e Cleric, because a D&D 5e Cleric is just a monkey of whatever you want it to be. It could be a supreme caster. It can level up to the power level of a wizard in 5th edition, but here we're a support casting role. We are what a Cleric is supposed to feel like, and I'd be interested just to play with, just to feel it. If you'd like to convert to Basic Liches, please subscribe. Subscribe today for weekly content and toll the bell for notifications.
Go ahead and drop us a comment down below. Let us know your favorite Cleric deities in Pathfinder 2E. Let's get down to brass tacks and figure out the mechanics and features of the Cleric class. First and foremost, if you want to see all the proficiencies of the Cleric class, we got them for you right here. Ooh.
What is the key ability to this
Key
class?
ability is wisdom. You got to be wise if you want to be a Cleric. First thing you're going to do is choose a deity. You need to choose a deity that matches your alignment, and you're going to gain a few things from this relationship. You're going to get a skill proficiency that's based on the deity. You're also going to choose a divine weapon. If it's uncommon, you gain access to that at level 1. And finally, your deity is going to give you some spells that are not on the divine spell list. Much like the barbarian, much like the champion, Clerics obviously have some anathemas as well. You are not allowed to cast spells that are evil if you're good. If you're evil, you can't cast good spells.
Makes sense.
If you're neutral and you start casting too many evil spells, you might become evil and you have to switch your deity and your whole purpose.
Wait, does that mean they have to keep track?
That your GM is secretly like, one evil spell. He's secretly keeping track of all the spells you cast.
Wait, what was the evil one we found?
Abyssal Plague.
Abyssal Plague, yeah. Oh, you cast Abyssal Plague again.
Yes, he's going to tempt you with evil spells.
3 more times and you're officially evil.
So, if you screw with your anathemas, much like the other classes, you can lose abilities. What you lose is actually determined by the Game Master, but it is hard-coded into the rules that if you are doing stuff that is against what your deity would like, if you're not following the word of your lord, you're going to lose some of your clerical powers. I love this stuff.
Yeah. Then we get Divine Spellcasting. Divine Spellcasting is going to give us access to 5 cantrips and 2 first-level spells at first level per day. We can choose however many we want each morning.
You get to choose from the whole list.
Yes. Your Divine Spellcasting also gives you access to your religious symbol, which allows you to cast some spells without the material components that it requires.
Yeah.
Then again, it wants us to be aware of preparing heightened spells, where we can prepare spells at a heightened level, more powerful.
Don't have to worry about that at level 1. You're not going to gain that until level 2, so
just keep it in there.
Yeah, don't worry about that. The next feature we must discuss is the Divine Font. This is going to be provided by the deity that you choose, and you are either going to learn the heal spell or the harm spell, or if you have access to both, you get to choose. Healing lets you heal people, and harm lets you harm people. When using either your heal spell or harm spell, you're actually going to be gaining separate spell slots that are only used for those 2 spells. And this is going to be 1 plus your charisma modifier.
Then we have the Cleric Doctrines. These are basically our subclasses. The first one we have is the Cloistered Cleric, which will give us some feats, gain some spells in our domain, extra domain spells from our deity. Then we have the War Priest Doctrine, which will give us some feats that gain us the ability to block, some little armor proficiencies, make us heavier in melee combat. Then we got to be aware of metamagic as well. Metamagic are actions that tweak the properties of our spells, and we basically have to do them before those actions.
And that's it. That's everything you need to know for the Cleric in terms of mechanics and features, because you do not get any feats at first class as a Cleric. We wanted to highlight a few Cleric spells for you, give you a little taste. The spell that I chose is called Spirit Link. It is a divine spell, and it is a level 1 divine spell. What you do is you choose a willing participant to link your spirit with as the Cleric. At the start of your turn and every turn thereafter, if the person that you've linked up with is below maximum hit points, they are going to gain 2 of your hit points.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So you get to act sort of as a battery. So if the barbarian is in the front lines whipping ass, beating down peeps, you can just siphon them some life every single turn. This ignores temporary hit points, but you do get to dismiss it. You can't just be like, okay,
that's enough. Oh god,
stop taking.
So I chose Divine Lance. It's a pretty basic spell. It's a cantrip. It does 1d4 damage plus your spell casting ability modifier. You know, we're gonna make a ranged attack to hit, but you can choose to make it like an alignment damage, some alignment from your deity, and it has that trait. So I thought it was cool. You just create a lawful spear and then just, huck it at the unlawful.
It does good damage.
Batman can just be like, Joker!
It is time for everyone's favorite segment, A Day in the Life of a Cleric. First thing we're going to do is wake up, do some light praying, maybe have some breakfast.
Put on a little makeup.
And we're going to figure out which spells we need to prepare for the day. Today we know that we might be getting into some fisticuffs, so we're going to prepare some support and healing spells.
So the party heads out to meet with their new friend, Gary Doombringer. And amidst conversation, we think Gary's acting a little sus. So we're going to cast Detect Alignment. We can choose evil, and since we know that the rest of our party aren't evil, by process of elimination, we sense a presence of something evil. We know it's got to be him. The barbarian jumps on him, beats the truth out of him, and we discovered that he's actually part of a cult, leader of a cult, and they're summoning a demon in the bog nearby.
We head outside of the city towards the forest that holds the Swamp of Despoilment. It is rainy, it is windy, there are thick tendrils of fog. We are utterly lost in the woods. We don't know where we are. Without a ranger, because we haven't covered that class yet, it's up to us as the cleric. We cast no direction. We get a glimpse of where north is, and using that little tidbit of information, we're able to regain the path and find our way back. Using that little bit of knowledge, we are able to guide the party to the path that is no longer lost to us.
So we got ourselves back on track, but on the way we get jumped by a group of ghouls.
It's combat time. What are we doing, Kamo, as a cleric?
We're gonna cast Bless. That's gonna give us a +1 circumstance bonus, 5 feet around us to our party members, to all their attack rolls and damage. Right? Damage too?
Oh, maybe. Correct us.
Yeah, if we're wrong, please tell us. The barbarian hacks and slashes, the alchemist is throwing bombs, comes back to our turn. We're gonna use Disrupt Undead to do some damage to these ghouls. And then as part of the same turn, we're gonna use an action to grow our Bless to 10 feet and allow our party to expand into the bog and swamp while still being blessed. Then on the turn after that, we're gonna cast Spirit Link on our barbarian to give him some of our health to buffer his tankiness. And then, after that, we're gonna finish off a ghoul with Heal, because it damages undead.
Bye-bye. All of the ghouls are dead, and we're gonna press onward. We finally discover the enclave of cultists. As soon as they see our party, they are spooked. They know we're too badass for them, and they scatter off into the forest and swamp. We raid their small encampment and uncover some vile scriptures, some evil books, some terrible scrolls. The party is going to fortify our position because we need to hunker down in this swamp for the evening. While that's going on, we are going to take a look at these vile parchments and do some research. In the middle of the night, we finally have a breakthrough, and we know exactly where the cult will strike next. And that's it. That's a day in the life of the cleric. What a joy. Oh, blessed be our Lord and Savior, Pathfinder 2E. Let's make some goddamn assumptions there, Kamo.
Let's do it.
How would you classify this if we were going to get video gamey?
Oh my god, support caster. Can't believe I'm saying it. A cleric is actually a support caster.
Yeah. Yeah, they're flexible. You could either be a woman of the cloth or you can be a battle boy. Pros and cons for a cleric. What do you think?
Things I like about this class. I think it's easy. I think it's an easy class to play. Easy casting. I think it's easy to find your motivation. It's built there for you in the mechanics of this class.
I agree with all that. I love all the flavor, and I love how the cleric feels in Pathfinder. I also like how you're so versatile. You have that whole list of divine spells to choose from each and every day. That sort of differentiates you from the bard, which is the only other spellcaster that we've looked at. But I love that flexibility, that versatility, where if you want to be the person that stands in the back and casts spells and supports that way, that's what you do. If you want to be all tanky and armored up, but you still have some spell casting, you can do that as well. I always love when there's like some flexibility, but it still feels like the same class.
Yes, yeah, we're
That's
still
important.
in the same realm of
Yes.
cleric.
How about some cons? Anything you dislike?
Something I don't like is kind of like the make your own god is not really there. And if you don't have a god, then you don't have access to abilities. I think that's a little silly. Obviously 5e is open and they want you to kind of create things, and in their ambiguity, we also have the con of not having direction. What we have here, we have something great here, where you actually have to pick a god, and the god makes the class, and you have mechanics based around it, right? But say I wanted to be creative with this cleric, and I wanted to create my own god, maybe I would just have to reskin an existing god. Maybe that would just make sense,
My only real complaint is that you don't get any feats at level 1 as a cleric. Again, I think if you choose a specific ancestries, you might gain access to feats that way, but those are not cleric feats. I also think that learning that whole spell list, you could sort of make some poor choices with your preparation for the day.
Yeah.
So poor planning, I think it takes a little bit of time to sort of, especially people like us that are noobs, we don't know exactly how effective and how good all spells are. So I think that could lead to some less than ideal sessions starting off as a cleric. Who do you think is going to enjoy being a cleric in this game?
Probably the game supporter, someone who likes to either be in the front tanking or healing and buffing everyone, debuffing baddies, killing undead, and the problem solver. I feel like there's a lot of tools that the cleric has to discover things, find things, find evil things, good things, bad things.
I really think it's going to be that role player, that person that really is like the actor role player. You're going to really get into this. You're going to totally be invested in that relationship between you and the GM and you and your deity.
Yeah.
Your GM is your god.
Wolf, how difficult do you think this is to learn and play, this class?
I don't know if it's just getting easier the more that we go through these different classes.
Well, we just did Bard, so this was almost identical to a mix of Bard and Champion.
You're not wrong. They sort of seem to be combined. I thought this was incredibly straightforward. I just think maybe learning those divine spells are going to be your only sort of roadblock. 2 out of 5, maybe? Like 1.5 out of 5?
These casters seem really easy.
Yeah. Game Masters, we never forget about you guys. You're so important. We got some cleric tips. If you got a cleric player at the table, Kamo, take it away.
Yes, with the cleric GMs we're going to build this character and know their deity, know what their anathema is, make sure that everyone's on the same page with what happens if they break their oath, what they have to do to atone. Same thing as Paladin. But when I like to differentiate between the two, between Cleric and Champion or Paladin, I like to think of the Paladin having the weight of the responsibility of carrying on their faith on their shoulders. And I like to think of the Cleric as having this calling. They have a project, someone they need to fix, right? Shepherd Book is a great example. He has to fix Mal. Morpheus has to awaken, guide Neo. Those are the types of things when I think when you're working with your cleric and finding out what their motivation is, what they want to do, how they want to enlighten people, because they're kind of closer, right? They're closer to their god.
I think another fun thing to do as a game master is to come up with some like atonement charts, so they don't necessarily just have to do that atonement ritual for an entire day to sort of regain their cleric abilities. I think having disapproval charts, things like that, can add a lot of flavor, and it shows that you're going sort of the extra mile with that player to make them feel like their religion and their deity is special. Make sure there's some undead at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe. Something unholy, undead, chaotic, something that is their like arch nemesis.
For any cleric or paladin.
Yeah, make
Or
sure that those
champion.
things are there. Be like, we're just fighting giants this entire campaign. Have there be omens. Have there be, come up with a herald for your deity. And they're like, it could be some weird spiritual animal that you see and only you can see as the cleric, and it's leading you somewhere in the forest. Or, you know, you sort of hear the word of your deity while you're adventuring, and it's giving you advice. You want the other players at the table to almost like believe in this god with you. They're like, this guy is super helpful. I'm thinking about converting, and not just for the food. All right, we got some final impressions, and we're gonna sort of compare how the cleric in Pathfinder holds up against the cleric in 5e. For me, I've probably played more cleric in 5e than any other class. I've played an entire Curse of Strahd campaign as a cleric. I've played it on top. I love the cleric class. I love the idea of having a character that is beholden to a deity, and you sort of touched on my biggest issue with it, is that there's no hard-coded rules. There's nothing in the rulebook of Dungeons and Dragons that punishes you.
In 5e, it just tells you what gods you can pick. And what they're aligned, and what they're about, what their deal is. But never anything mechanical.
And so as a player, I want that experience. But I have to almost force it. I have to tell my dungeon master to be like, this is how I want this cleric to be.
Yeah. Challenge me. Please punish me if I break the rules.
Sure. And to be honest, I've played a ton. I can't stress this enough how much I've played, and it almost never comes up in 5e games. If I'm being the dungeon master, I have found that people don't really want that in 5e either. They just want to be able to have all of their tools at their disposal and just be as powerful as they can be with no repercussions. It's just like, you worship this god's just like, basically do whatever the hell you want. When we first came across the anathemas, you were sort of like, I don't really know how I feel about these things. But like for me, like I was always like, no, because if they're not there, then they're not
in play.
It's just no one is going to want to deal with those things.
You're right.
And I want more role playing. I'm not a min-maxer. I want that sort of lush storytelling, and I want people to just buy into their characters, and I want there to be flaws, and I want not everything to just be like this power fantasy.
Yeah. Hallelujah. That was fun. Thank you for joining us on a class breakdown of the Cleric. We have fun making these. Continue to follow us. We're doing the rest of the classes. We are not going to stop until they're all done.
We got everything you need for the Pathfinder 2e beginner. Join us on our journey. We have the playlists. We have the videos here. Subscribe button. Let's go, people.
Later, Liches.
Bye.